Hello and welcome to the Cheap Mama Life podcast. I'm your host and your Cheap Mama, Brenda Kilhofer. And I have a guest that everybody really raved about last time she was on the show. Back with us today, Brie, who is a brand strategist on Instagram. And she is incredibly talented and comes from a background of doing a lot of nannying, full-time nannying, travel, all over the world. So I am excited to have her join us today. Brie, why don't you give a quick introduction and then we'll jump right down into our topic.
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Brie Falough. I have a company called Healthy, Wealthy, and the Divine Society. But Brenda knows me and so many other people know me as a brand strategist for Instagram. I was an international high profile nanny for years. But once that season was over and I was very good at storytelling, I jumped right into marketing.
And she is absolutely an incredible marketer. So we were having some conversation the other day, and I um, we decided to jump on and do a podcast again. And Brie had been talking to a friend of hers about the body positive movement. Brie, tell me what that means and how that was described to you.
Yes, I'm still trying to like wrap my mind around it. I'll back up a little. I'll back up a little bit. So, I ended up starting Healthy, Wealthy, and Divine because I was working with a lot of women on their branding on Instagram, and it can be very vulnerable. You
Mhm.
have to talk about yourself, right? And not a braggy way, but in information. Um, way, for
Mhm.
your potential clients to know about you, right?
Right.
But you have to also believe in yourself and believe in the product. And so a lot of things were coming up for these women, right? I was finding myself having to coach and consult and kind of like pep talk these ladies. And a lot of them were not healthy, like in their mind, in their body, in their spirit. They were not wealthy, as in, they didn't have a lot of money to spend. So everything was just really tense and they had to jump in and everything had to work right away. And of course, they weren't walking in, I feel like, their divine femininity, divineness that Jesus has called us to be. Like he wants us to have an abundant life. But I found that you needed to be healthy before wealthy, because if you get wealth before being healthy, you see with a lot of celebrities and some of my past clients,
Mm,
it can be very destructive.
right.
It's like a kid in a candy store. There needs to be structure. And I think, obviously being flesh and bones, I've always pushed against, right? Like, I think that's like a sinful nature. You just want to go against the grind and do your own thing. But getting older and getting wiser and obviously having great mentors like Brenda, having great mentors like my parents, you need
Mhm.
structure. And so
Right.
part of it is physically being healthy, right? So in high school, I lost 80 pounds. I'm currently on a quest to lose 40 more after talking to my nutritionist and to my doctor. And I was talking to one of my girlfriends, and she's like, well, why are you losing weight? How do you feel? And I'm like, well, I feel great, but I can always feel better. This is a fellow Christian. We were
Mhm.
talking about how your body's your temple, right?
Right.
And how you need to like nourish your body. This was my standpoint. And she was like, well, I've joined the body positivity movement, which I believe that there's health in every size. So I stopped there and I was like, okay, let me hear her out and hear what she has to say. And she kind of went into how she felt like BMI and even the word obesity is a racist term, that people have different body structures, that, some people are going to be skinnier, some people are going to be more dense, but how doctors calculate health is almost like based off of like a European or Asian body type. Now I had to push back a little bit because she's like, a lot of doctors that are teaching about health, quote unquote, are coming from a medical background, which of course, I want my doctor to have a medical background. And she just pretty much felt like it was racist. And so I'm listening to this and, I'm trying to keep my cool because health, I'm very passionate about health. My parents, and they won't mind me talking about this, they've had health struggles. Some of it was because, lack of education, and they didn't know about carbohydrates and fats and sugars, but now they do. And I've had so many of my elders lose arms, lose eyesight, lose feet. I just had one of my great aunts lose her whole foot.
Mm.
My uncle passed away not having legs. So I'm hearing this notion as a Black American woman, and she's pretty much talking about how this is racist and health at every size. But I'm thinking to myself, what about diabetes? What about hypertension? What about strokes? What about breast cancer? Right? I read a very, very humbling statistic about, Black women who are 30 pounds overweight
Mm-hmm.
have a 75% or so increase in breast cancer. I don't want to talk
Right.
about my tatas, but I like my tatas. They've been here my whole life. And of course, cancer, I'm not even joking about cancer and tatas, right?
Right.
It's very serious. It's very serious. I think that's on a surface level of wanting to keep my body looking good. But on a health level, I've had girlfriends have breast cancer, and it's traumatizing to their body, their
Right.
mindset. Chemo is so invasive, so invasive. Um, I just, so I started to research my own about the body positivity movement, and I might get like nailed to the cross for this, and I'm okay. But I was wondering, is it discrimination because people feel like, they're getting mocked for being fat, which obviously, or obese, whatever, I don't know the terms. Like, my friend is now going as, I am a proud Black fat woman, and that's like her title, which even in that self, I'm like, is that healthy to have that label over you? Anywho, is it a movement, or is it society saying, you know what, let's just, bleep it all and just not even try, burger
Right.
and French fries and soda all day. And like, don't get me wrong, Five Guys, I want them to sponsor me. I would eat that all day. However, like, let's be honest. If you asked a child, right? I always go back to kids because of nanny. Do you want a carrot stick or a cheese stick, or do you want French fries and pizza? Hello. I
Right.
think most of us would say in our flesh, I want pizza. I don't want to work out, but is that good for you overall? So that's
Wow.
that's where I'm at today, because I was like, if you and well, I'll back up. If you don't protect your temple, if you don't, see yourself as divine, and to me, it's not about skinny. My family, I'm built like a Serena Williams type, right? I'm muscular, I'm
Right.
dense. I'm not gonna be Naomi Campbell. Okay, I'm 5'2". I'm not trying to be,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to be strong. I want every woman, every family to be physically strong, mentally like alert, and my dad, he's had 7 knee surgeries, and he's
Wow.
always battled the bulge. And he'll tell you there is nothing positive about them telling you, you know what? If you don't change your lifestyle, you're going to be next. You're going to lose your foot. Is that
Yeah.
body positivity? And, I'm doing more research. Maybe I need to be educated. I don't want anybody to be, quote unquote, treated differently because of their size or a disability. I want everyone to get health care and get the best health care. And there has been problems in the past with certain demographics,
Mm-hmm.
women, people of color, et cetera. But, I don't want to quote my grandma, but this ain't it. This
Yeah.
is not it. The Just do whatever you want. How has that ever worked for society? It hasn't.
Well, oh, I'm glad you didn't pause because that would have filtering my thoughts on some of this. Um, yeah, like racist. Did
Yeah.
um, you know, I understand there's a fine line between being obsessive, I mean, so my thinking in terms of positivity wouldn't be that, hey, I'm okay in being fat. I think there is or and sorry if I offended anybody using that word, but that's what I call myself when I'm overweight. And no, that's not healthy either, right? I get to work on that self-talk. um and yeah, I would agree there's a fine line between being obsessive, right?
Right.
We need to be happy in who we are, correct? That we're not defined by the exterior. And I don't know a place where I can be happy in being overweight. I mean, I'm on the journey you're on right now. I'm on a quest to release. I don't like the word lose, because if I lose something, I find it. I find it, right? When you lose it,
That's good.
You're bound to find it again, and I don't want to find it again. So
I love that release.
Yeah, but I'm on a quest right now to release 40 pounds. I got, what is it? They call it the COVID 40. I did that. And how did I end up 40 pounds overweight? Well, because I wasn't choosing the right foods. And it wasn't that I wasn't choosing, you know what, there's choosing the right foods all the time and never indulging. And I don't think that that's necessarily, you know, what's expected to be healthy, right? You know, and you don't have a bowl of ice cream every single night when you hit 50 and not expect to gain weight as a woman. Right?
Right.
You know, these things should be in moderation, you know, just like, you know, anything, right? You know, and there's in the faith world, right? You've got the folks that say never, ever, ever drink alcohol, right? That's wrong. But then there's other, you know, in moderation, right? Scripture talks about having wine at weddings and things like that. When you're eating, when you're drinking, when doing any of these extracurricular, when you're exercising, right? You can exercise too much. Everything is in moderation. Right. And I definitely, I mean, even when we look at this whole COVID pandemic, my understanding, I think the science tells us that the vast majority of those that died through COVID had comorbidities like obesity and diabetes. Right. And and even you, the first thing you talked about is meeting with women who were healthy in their mindset and confident. And I don't know, when my body is not performing at its peak performance because I'm overweight, you know, I'm not insanely overweight. You know, I don't think I fall into the lines of obese, but my BMI is too high for my height and weight. You know, I don't like the way it looks, but it does affect confidence, right? My knee hurts. You know, I'm not going to get up and do the exercise that's going to keep my body in its best shape. You know, being a sedentary lifestyle, sitting on the couch was not what the human body was designed for.
No.
And I can attribute, you know, and I'll attribute some exercise, some I've had, I don't know if we've even talked about this, but I've had 4 incidences lately with my horse that I have come off the horse. 2 or 3 of which I hit my head. So, you know, so when you hear me trying to remember things, there was a little bit of a mild concussion, and recall is sometimes difficult. And I can take every single one of those incidences right back to the first incident. I had not been on her. I had put on so much weight. I had not been on my horse. I had put on that all of that weight. And the first thought in my mind was, can I even get up on her? Right. I had doubt because of the weight that I gained that I would be able to get on her, you know, because you have to kind of, you've got to be a little athletic to get up on the back of a horse.
Right. Turn that leg over.
And so, of course, I didn't. Now, could I have? Yes, because I've done it multiple times since, but I didn't. I got tangled up in the stirrup. I ended up I came back down, and as I was trying to get my foot out of the stirrup, standing with one foot on the ground, I got tangled up in it, ended up kicking her a little bit, which startled her, which sent my water bottle flying off, which is a big, heavy metal, heavy stainless steel one. And that just sent her running while foot still stuck in stirrup.
Oh no.
I came out of the stirrup, but hit my head really hard on the ground. And that also resulted in a lot of nervousness and anxiety for her.
Right.
And so from that incident on, I've now come off of her 4 times. One time injuring the shoulder. And it all stems from that self-doubt. And that has carried forward in lots of, look at in my business, I get to stand up on stage, right? And you do so when you hit achievements and to discuss achievements. And I had to take a hard look at, am I not hitting my goals because there's that subconscious fear about being on stage, because now I'm no longer comfortable in the clothes that I had, and I have to go buy others that I'm not as confident and comfortable in. So I get, now, should my weight affect me to that point? I don't know. I mean, are we wired that way so that we do the right things, or is that unhealthy? I mean, is that part of the body positivity movement, to have a healthy approach to what you look like, or just to, to your point, just, well, it is what it is. So heck with it.
And I struggle, right? Because I feel like in a lot of these movements that I see around that are popping up, right? Like the root of it is something happened where somebody was treated wrongly and they wanted to stand up, right? And in that notion, I don't think that's bad, right? Like, women, when they go to the hospitals, right, are sometimes not taken as seriously as men. That's an issue. Naturally, people have biases and sometimes prejudice against people that are overweight. Is that true? Yes, because people, I think in society, feel like, oh, you let yourself go, and there's a lot of shaming, right? Or, I don't know how many times I've seen girlfriends get advice from strangers that they did not ask for, right? Which is a violation. Please don't pick on me. Don't show. I tell my dad and my, and some of the men in my family, please don't tell women about their flaws. Trust me, we already seen it 4 times. Like, I know when my butt's not as tight as it should be. Sorry to go there, but it's true. I know when I'm bigger. However, the extreme notions, right? Like with my girlfriend, maybe she would argue, like, see, if you don't feel as confident going on stage, it's because society has told you that you shouldn't, or that you need to look a certain way because of European beauty standards, or just beauty standards overall. And like, okay, right? Like, I'm not going to be blonde hair and blue eyes. I'm a Black woman. That's, but I know that God has created me to be who I am. On the flip side, back to the whole temple thing, how do you feel? You can't tell me that, like my friend's mother, who was 375 at 5 foot, she was walking down a flight of stairs, and she happens to be 60, right? So her bones and her bone density, she missed a step and she broke her whole body. When I tell you she broke her whole body, she sprained her ankle, she broke her thigh bone, she hurt her collarbone, and she broke her arm in 3 places. Now, that could be an accident, but when she reflected, she was like, my body is too heavy. So when I went boom, my bones just snapped. So to me, it's really hard for me to hear that argument of healthy at every size and you feel good. I just don't know if that's the truth.
Yeah, I hear you. And it could be a little bit of both. I mean, it could be that I put that pressure on myself because of what others would think, but I don't. There's also a piece of being comfortable. I mean, there's that side of looking in the mirror and saying, I like what I see, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily based on what everybody else says. I mean, we we can look at a plate of food and I like what I see. Some people like peas. I don't like peas. So when I look at that, I don't like what I see if there's a meal full of peas in it. You
Right.
know, where I mean, there we are there's also an intuitive piece of it, I think. And I think
Mm,
intuitively, we want to be healthy, right?
right.
Intuitively, we want to chase goals. We want to have purpose, right? And when those things aren't happening in our lives, then we're unhappy and dissatisfied.
Right.
So I think intuitively, I mean, we're this body is designed, as you said, to be a temple of God. The body is
Right.
designed for us to be able to go out and push its limits. You
Right.
know, whether it's for me riding a horse or whether it's, an athlete participating in the Olympics,
Hmm.
or, whether it's just, you know, a child learning to walk for the first time.
Right.
We're just
Hmm.
not wired and meant for anything less. We're meant to
Right.
be, I believe, the best version of us that we possibly can.
Right.
And sitting, and granted, people, we are all different shapes and sizes to start with. And there are going to be people that maybe, like you said, have a larger bone structure, um, that are curvier than others, that aren't,
Mhm.
I think that's where I have the challenge, like
Mhm.
with body shaming or
Right.
not when you're clearly beyond healthy, over and
Right.
above a point of being healthy. If there are things, and I guess in my mind, if there are things where your weight holds you back, things that you would want to do in your life and your weight holds you back, then that would be a challenge,
Right.
right?
Right. I mean, I think I naturally go back, like what you just said, like with the horse story, right? It's
Mhm.
like, and this is where I was asking my friend, and we are still friends, and it was a healthy dialogue, and I love learning about these different notions, right? Because I want to know, and I form my own thoughts, right? Because we're free thinkers, but I go back to the scriptures. If we are more than conquerors, right? I don't want anything in my way that's going to stop my ministry, that's going to stop my quality of life. So going back to like what you said with the horses, right? We all know I call Brenda Mama Brenda. I never actually got permission, but I just call you Mama Brenda because you're very loving and you nurture people, right? Well, Mama Brenda wants to go on a horse and that's your passion, but because of choices or so, or even say you sprained your ankle, right? That would stop you from doing what you love. And that's a healthy activity. It's a passion. Why would you want to do that? I have another friend and, I'm in Portland, Oregon, and this movement is it's like rapid fire, right? Like my friend was almost disappointed, like, oh, wow, you're conforming to society. And I'm like, no, I just don't want to lose my leg. I know my genetics. I see my elders. That's my body. Like I am them and they are me. Like I want to put my best foot forward, no pun intended. But, one of my friends, she's found herself in a predicament. She will label herself. She's like, I'm a white, fat woman. I'm a white, fat American woman. I'm a fat woman. And she will call herself that as like a banner of honor, to each its own. I'm not here to tell her how to identify or what to do with her life. She was someone that was very passionate about the BLM movement, to each its own. But because she's 612 pounds. Because she's 612 pounds at 5'9", she could not participate. So to me, it's beyond you're, a part of BLM and all that stuff. It's you can't participate in something that you love. They were walking around one of our parks in Portland protesting, and she couldn't get out of the car. She couldn't get on the ground when they wanted to like protest for George Floyd because she couldn't get up. And she said that, and it made her very sad. But then on the flip side, she's the first person to say, I'm not going to eat broccoli. I'm not going to eat spinach because I'm conforming. And I'm like, conforming to what? Like spinach, broccoli, um, Oh my goodness. Turkey meat, hamburger, proteins, carbohydrates. I mean, that's a part of life. Why are you pushing back on that for this identity that's keeping you back from doing what you want to do? I mean, when I tell you that she is passionate about equality, just like, we are in different ways, Brenda, but like just how we love people and we want everyone to be seen and heard and to live a victorious life. She does too in a different way. But now it's altered. Tell me how that's positive.
Right.
Tell me how that's living, an abundant life. It's not. You're a prison. Like she said, one time in honesty, I'm a prisoner in my own body.
Well, certainly, if it's holding her back from being able to do things that she wants to do, I mean, let's face it. I would imagine air travel's completely out of the realm of possibility for her.
Oh, oh yeah. And
I mean, unless of course she purchases first class tickets and
or 3 seats.
or well, and even then the distance now front to back, I mean, I struggle with that.
Right, right.
I mean, gosh darn, if you drop something on the floor, you ain't picking it up.
I mean, and when I tell you like the life alterations, again, dear
Mhm,
friend, you're there, I'm there. I love what you said, releasing. I'm gonna take that. I said I want to find it again. I mean,
mhm.
the struggle is real. Let's be real. Like it is very easy to gain weight sometimes and harder to lose it. Like I get it. I'm not shaming and be like, oh, go work out. But the thing is that she can't pick that thing up the floor. She has to go and get one of those little picker uppers. I don't even know the name, but like it's like a little handle where it picks up
Right.
pieces of paper because she cannot get up. And she also
Mhm.
lives alone. And like she's admitted, it's affected her love life. She
Yeah.
doesn't profess to be a Christian or a faith, to each its own. My friend group is diverse, right? As
Mhm.
yours is.
Right.
But like when it comes to, dare I say it, sexiness, attractiveness, like
Uh-huh.
it's hard courting because there's not a lot of people that find her attractive. And that is her words. That's not mine.
Yeah.
Now, some would argue in this movement, society needs to change. She has a lot to offer. Why didn't people find her attractive? Maybe we need to change the way we view people. But then
Well,
also, if you're a person that wants to be active and go kayaking, go on a date, walk around the corner, she can't do that.
right. And I think, I mean, I think we're due for a break and definitely want to come back to that. And I think her own definition of self is kind of defining. I mean, let's face it, fat is not a term that is attractive in anything. I mean, I don't want a ton of fat on my steak, right? That part
Right.
of it is not, it's just not, when you're talking finances, you
Right.
take the fat, let's get the fat out of the budget, right? I mean, the word itself is never a positive word. So
Right.
I guess I kind of wonder, what are we saying to ourselves when in
Exactly.
a positive movement that, hey, I am proud and fat.
Mhm.
I know for me that's a word that I have worked really hard to, um, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
If I go
Right.
stand in the mirror every morning as I get dressed and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so fat," and I do
Right.
that, I've done it. Then what am I telling myself? I am
Right.
basically conditioning myself to be that. So let's take a quick break and jump back on after we hear from our sponsor and continue the conversation, because I definitely wanted to hit on some of the other, just the science side of things a little bit too.
Yes. Right.
All right, we'll be right back after the break.
This is good. I love it.
Hello, my people, my people. For many years now, 6 to be exact, I have been interviewing countless influencers and experts. Somebody who may be just like you. You may be a small business owner, or you might be someone with a compelling story, or want to educate our audience, our people, you the people. Come on down to the Transform You Media Network. We are rolling out docuseries, 5-part interviews that you can be a part of. We want to feature you. You can be in our next documentary. Send an email to media@transformu.us or visit transformubroadcast.com and hit the contact us button. We'll see you there.
All right, and welcome back to the show after a quick break. I am Brenda Kilhofer. I'm your Cheap Mama. You're on the Cheap Mama Life with me and Brie Falough, a brand strategist on Instagram and owner of an incredible empire where she truly helps women to become their best selves. And we are talking today about body positivity. Brie educated me earlier on the movement and what one of her friends shared with her as Brie was confessing her desire to release some weight, which I think all of us women can relate to at times. So when we left on the break, we were kind of talking about just that self-talk of she has now labeled herself as a fat white woman, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And does it very proudly and boldly.
And I think labels in and of itself is what begins to get us in trouble in a lot of ways, right?
Right.
I mean, why not just label ourselves a woman or a man, a human being,
Right.
or just I don't know. That's a whole nother topic, right? Because now we have all of these different pronouns that we're labeling.
Right.
And some would say that labeling ourselves man or woman is bad, right?
Yes, I've gotten in trouble in Portland. Yes.
Oh my gosh. The world that we live in today.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we have to be careful about. Like, if you go, I think it's Proverbs 23, like chapter 23, a man thinketh he becometh, right? So if you say, I'm fat, I'm stupid, and my mother never let me say I'm a failure. No, there's something that you have not mastered yet.
Right.
And we're always, and you might never master it, but we're going to strive, right? Like we're going to strive to be better. I go back to like Martin Luther King, where he talks about like, I don't want to misrepresent the quote, but like being the best you could be. If you are called to be someone that sweeps the street, be the best street sweeper there is.
Right.
If you're going to be a teacher, be the best teacher there is. And so I'm kind of calling these women that want to be in this movement of, I guess you call, my business and movement, healthy, wealthy, and divine, right? And this is a question that everybody has to ask themselves, right? Your metric of success is not mine, right? Your body and what it looks like at its peak is not what my body looks like, right? We're totally different people. But are you putting your best foot forward? Are you trying? And going back to what you said, looking in the mirror and being, I'm fat. Even my new ager clients who I dearly love and have learned a lot from, they talk about that. Like just, the self-fulfilling prophecy and just being careful about what, like they say, putting out there for the spiritual guides, right. To grab onto. That's their notion. That's fine. I respect that.
And it's the same. I mean, it goes right back to what you said. I mean, scripturally, we would say the same thing. A man speaketh, right? Ask and you shall receive, where two or more are gathered in prayer. I mean, we would say the same things, just in a very different way.
Yes. Right.
And so that's why, that's why I mean, as you know, I've had met several very spiritual folks on my show. I love having them on my show because at the end of the day, these truths are important to us being our best selves, regardless of what genre of instruction or faith they come from. Does that,
absolutely.
I mean, I think they're universal truths. I think you can look at any religion and they're going to say the same things. And I think spirituality, I mean, is probably just as much, a religion. In fact, I know I spoke when I interviewed our producer for the network, Marcus. He talked about, the whole critical race theory as being a religion.
Mm,
It's
all right. Okay.
a
Yeah.
view or doctrine, right, of some sort, a worldview, uh,
Hmm.
and every one of them would even even that would does bring up what it is you say to yourself,
Right.
right?
Right.
And when I lost, so I about 2 years ago, I had released about 50 pounds. Um, and prior to that, I had what shifted for me actually was I had been reading in the book, Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. He
Mm,
also
hmm.
talks about as a man thinketh,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
Thoughts are things. And in that book, it prescribes a specific outline for your daily affirmations. And I had been speaking those affirmations each day,
Hmm.
and it dealt with what I wanted, different in different affirmations than say, um, I'm great. I'm a wonderful contactor, not that, but it was on or before, this date, I'll have, X amount of money in my bank account.
Hmm.
The work I intend to do for that is this at my best, and giving the best possible service, all of those things. And in my affirmations, I talked about, I have a healthy mind and body, and I make good choices when it comes to that. And I had been saying that for daily for maybe 30 plus days. I don't know. And I came across a picture of me several years back. Um, and I was like, wow, I look great in that picture. And then the next thought was, but I thought I was fat.
Mm,
and
yeah.
and that's when I realized that um it was what I was saying to myself at the time.
Right.
And I dove in at that point. I picked a method, at the end of the day, um I think there's a lot of great programs out there to release weight, uh and not one of them is going to work until that mindset, what you're telling yourself, changes.
Absolutely.
And as soon as I had that shift in mindset, it was easy.
Right.
And as I began release or gaining weight with this COVID thing, I noticed that negative self-talk coming in when I would put clothes on. Oh gosh, I'm getting fat. Oh man, I'm getting fat. Oh, I got to get, and it just rapidly comes back
Right.
rapidly.
Right.
So I do think what we are saying to ourselves is so key.
Hmm.
Um, you know, if body positive movement was about that, right? Accepting where I am, having acceptance and love for where I am right now, as opposed to beating myself up over it,
Right.
and moving forward to where I want to be. That I think is an entirely different message than simply accepting and being okay for the rest of your life with where you are.
Right.
Is that
Hmm. Right. I remember my high school teacher talking, like my high school science um teacher talking about like when you stop moving, she would even use the word evolving. If you stop thinking and growing, you die, right?
right?
Like if you stop moving forward, right? Or even if you move back, that's still movement. I mean, obviously you don't want to do that, right? In certain aspects of your life, but if you stop growing, you die, right? We are meant to move, we're meant to grow. And
Right.
that's, I mean, I think that's just my heartbeat is like wherever you are, right? Like know that we can always be a little bit better. Like we can, we should strive, right? And to me, going back to like what you said with the self-fulfilling prophecy and how you speak to yourself, right? Like that is so crucial. And
Mhm.
I've, some people don't like Tony, Robbins or Dean Grazio for
Right.
whatever reasons, or people don't like Susie Orman or the Candace Owens.
Mhm.
She's talked about that too, about just like how overall the kids of if we don't change our narrative on
Mhm.
nutrition and health moving forward, the kids that we are raising right now, and even my generation being millennial, we potentially will die of things not like our elders did
Mhm.
of the flu or these diseases, right? They didn't know about it. We will die of lifestyle,
Right.
because I'm sorry, even Chris Rock and his comedy shows, which he gets a little crass for me, but he talks about it. He was like, McDonald's has killed more Black people than drive-by shootings, right? And
Right.
he said that, and people were appalled, because why are we joking about drive-by shootings? That's horrible. We don't want violence.
Right.
But let's and it was a joke, tongue in cheek, but let's go back to what he's saying, okay? Like, is McDonald's real food?
Yeah.
Like, is it something that you want your kids to eat? It's not health. Like, just at Subway the other day, and don't quote me, but they said something like the tuna there was not real tuna.
That was
That they were,
Subway. I think wasn't it Subway that yeah.
yeah, Subway, yeah, Subway, and it's just like, that's, to me, that's repulsive. That's like, eat real foods, foods that are going to, like, obviously help your body sustain. Be positive in your mind, love your body, love yourself, but know that as a particular person, talking to your own self, right? Self-talk. I am worthy of striving to be my ultimate best,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like you said with the ice cream. I love ice cream too, man. I do. Trust me. But do I feel good after it? No,
Right.
I have eczema. I get all inflamed.
Yeah.
Some people get a little gassy, if you want to go there. Is that what you want? No.
Yep. Well, and success leaves clues, right?
Yeah.
Success leaves clues.
Yes.
So to your point, you're either you're either growing or you're in decay, right? You're growing or dying, essentially. I had a mentor once put a chair in front of the room right now and said, is this what is this tree? Is this chair? What is it doing? As it
Right.
sits here right now, what is it doing?
Right.
It was once a tree.
Mm.
It grew as a tree. It grew.
Right.
Right
Right.
now, what happened to the wood the second you chopped it down?
Right.
If that chair, even being taken care of year after year after year, is it not in decay?
Right.
So if you're not growing, you're in decay.
Mm. I love that.
You
I
know,
love that.
there's no in between, right? There's no, because oftentimes we strive for some sort of stability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just
Right.
want stability. I want everything to stay the same. Well, you're in decay.
Right. Right.
And our, and I think that's the biggest challenge with that mental. And I don't think I think it's by design. I don't know where body positive image came from or body positive movement came from. And
Mm-hmm.
there could be someone with good intentions to begin with, but at the end of the day, let's talk about the science. If we're eating these, fatty, fried carbs, we're fueling our bodies with that and not getting appropriate exercise to burn our bodies. I mean, let's face it, science says that the proper calorie intake for the average woman is probably somewhere between 12 and 1500 calories a day, right?
Right.
If you go out to eat, how many calories are in one of those desserts many times?
How many calories are in, and some people get offended with calories, but sugar, right? Fat
Right.
grams are in a Starbucks latte. Let's talk about
Right.
it. Like,
Yeah. I mean, a whole meal and a latte, and you're going to leave it hungry, right?
yeah.
You've got, 622 calories in something, some of those. I've looked at desserts on the menu and they're 2200 calories or, the meal. And then you already had a meal that was 1100. I think the average meal that I see now, because I tend to choose based on that, the average meal that I see is, 11 to 14, somewhere between 950 and 1100 calories for a restaurant meal when you go sit down and eat. And then in
Right.
the fine print, that says not including sides. So,
Right.
you can get almost a week's worth of calories in one restaurant setting. And I'm not
Exactly.
saying don't go out and eat. No,
No, no.
no. And if you're being if you're being cognizant and aware of it, and you're doing some sort of exercise, and some people, that might just be, standing up in your living room and doing 10 squats a day. It
Right.
might just be getting on. I mean, my grandmother's 95 years old. She gets up and she still stretches. She does
Oh yeah.
stretches, floor stretches every day. You
Right.
know, um, some type of exercise. It could be walking. It doesn't have to be, hitting the gym and being obsessive about building every single
Right.
muscle.
Right.
If we're striving for that and that's not what we want, because we want others to look at us that way, I think that's where we should be talking about body positivity, right?
Right. Right.
What is it,
Exactly.
if I want to push myself, if that's what I want, because hey, I truly want to see how far I can test my body, and can I, be that athletic? Great. That's not me. You know what?
Right.
I want to be able to get up on my horse, hopefully someday do an endurance race, have the stamina to go to, and and to have the body strong and healthy enough that when I
Right.
do fall off, I'm not worried about every single bone in my body cracking and breaking.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And so back to I guess the point I was making, when we talk about all of these fatty carb foods, you hear about what it does to one, it, it does to your body's ecosystem as far as the
Hmm.
different parasites and things. I mean, let's face it, we have them all in our body, right?
Right. Right.
So now you've got these little, parasites there that are feeding on the sugar and multiplying because you're giving them that food,
Right.
making you feel worse, but also creating the different, more a brain fog, right?
Right.
You're getting tired sooner. You're not as mentally alert
Right.
as, and I think I had even read something not too long ago um, that the amount of like dairy and meat and things that we consume, we talk about, you brought up heart diseases and things like that, but the
Right.
clogging of the arteries,
Autoimmune disease and
right?
such.
But even just the clogging of the arteries and stuff, I've seen some reports that actually maybe dementia and Alzheimer's could even technically be caused by that, where maybe you think you're otherwise healthy, but over time, those fat deposits are actually affecting all of the little capillaries and things in your brain, which is what's so maybe, no, you don't have a big old clogged artery in your leg or there, but those deposits are still ending up somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and so I just, I think we have to look at the cold hard truth there as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. I mean, and like, and that's such a good point. And I think kind of like what we talked about earlier, like my goal, I think that you would agree with this, is the balance, right? Now,
Right.
again, like I said, I think that these movements, right, come from a good place and from compassion and love, but they've
Right.
been taken to the extreme. Like,
Mhm.
okay, my other girlfriend, she's a psychologist and she has battled with her weight her whole life because she was anorexic and bulimic,
Right.
and she's been healed through Jesus, through that, and through counseling, and through working through childhood trauma and her subconscious mind. Okay, beautiful. And she'll say too, on the flip side, right, she would eat a french fry and think about that french fry for weeks and
Right.
dread it and
Ooh.
get depressed and cry and like, so yes, that's not being, that in itself too, to me, is slavery of like, oh my God, I
Yes.
can't believe I did this. And you know purging her food, and obviously lost her hair, kidney function. She
Mm.
might not be able to have kids one day, right? That's obviously, like she said, not the divine life either, right? And
Right.
so there is that balance. But then, like she said, it's totally other extremes to obsessing about a French fry to, you know what, bleep it, you know, I'm going to eat
Right.
whatever I want. And it's no, that balance. And yes, back to like the restaurant conversation, right? That's the notion. Should we talk about our food in this country? Right.
Mm,
And what, and you know, like you said, Starbucks, that's the whole, that's the whole shabam for the day.
right.
And you just, you know, blew it on one drink. Right. And, you know, I just,
Well,
being someone
yeah.
that has,
And I like one of those drinks as much as the next guy.
me
And
too.
I, you know, and so finally what we did is I bought a little, you know, an espresso, not a super fancy one or anything like that, but I'd gotten a coffee pot espresso machine combo
Hmm.
from Costco. And I went in and got some sugar-free syrups.
Yep.
And once a week. Now I don't use it every day. I use it
Right.
once a week, you know.
Right.
And so now I get to enjoy that, and I'm not you know, obsessing over it. And then my cheap mama side, of course, is like, okay, now I'm not paying $5, $6 for a cup of coffee either, you know.
Right.
So it just made sense that that investment upfront in those things. But yeah, you're right. There's a fine line between obsession either direction, right?
Exactly.
You
Right.
know, you can have obsessive behavior eating, um, and you can have obsessive behavior trying to not trying to achieve a certain body type, right?
Right.
And I think
Exactly.
that's what it, you know, I mean, granted, there certainly are medical reasons people are can be you know, there can be heavy or overweight. And I
Yes.
think you should, you know, and I think you should work with a doctor in those, but in our country, to your point, the food in our country, it has become about it's the food. It's the, I mean,
Hmm.
I remember there was that one documentary on McDonald's where the guy ate it every
Yep.
single day and
Super size
described,
me.
yeah,
Yeah.
super, yeah, you know, super size. And the guy just became insanely unhealthy and just felt bad.
And very
Uh,
quickly too. That was the thing
yeah,
that, and they had to actually, wasn't it something like he was supposed to do this study for a certain amount of time and he couldn't even make it because the doctor's like, okay, we got to cut you off because
yeah,
you're,
it was
and they
so
were,
bad.
and I remember it's required now in Oregon schools, you know, because, you know, again, Oregon, we have our issues, but we have a lot of positive things too. We're very woo woo. It's all about like going to your natural path, holistic medicine, right?
Right.
Prevention versus crisis. I love that. I'm proud of my state for that, where it's like, before we get to the point where you have cancer, or you have to
Mhm.
amputate a leg, or you're losing your sight, let's talk about nutrition. Let, you know, there's more, I think, dietitians, and we have the school of natural Chinese medicine, which is amazing,
Right.
amazing, right? And so that's one thing I'm very proud about. But they were seeing in that study, like they thought, oh, maybe, you know, he might gain a belly or like, you know, arthritis. His liver was failing.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
that. You need your liver. And one more point too, not to go like totally, you know, nuts or so, but in a way, I almost felt shamed
Yeah.
because it was like, how dare you conform to European beauty standards? How dare you work out when doctors who have not considered your community, and this is also, so some of my white friends have said this too, doctors that have not considered your community as a Black woman, telling you what health is. And it's like, you know what? My grandma and grandpa, they had 9 children. You know,
Mhm.
a lot of quality time, as we said, right? And
Right.
every one of their children had 6 children. We have 37 doctors in our family, Black
Wow.
doctors, right? Black, you know. So I would tell them too, okay, so this community, the medical community, is not, you know, listening to Black, you know, people, which, okay, yes, there has been a history, and there's still things that happen. Don't get me
Right.
wrong, I'm not
Right.
discrediting people's experiences.
Right. Right.
However, my Black family members that are doctors will tell you, guess what? You do heroin, it's not gonna look good. Guess what? You eat fried chicken every day, it's not gonna look good, sis. What are you doing? Right?
Right.
Like they're on this, anti-obesity train too, because it's not the divine life. You're altered, you don't feel good,
Mhm.
and again, go back to my dad. He'll tell you there is nothing positive or fun cost wise
Mm-hmm.
or health wise for knee surgeries, for,
Right.
gout, right? That's something that's in our family too, gout and autoimmune disease. Like I have eczema. When
Mm-hmm.
I'm inflamed because I have too much dairy or too much sugar, which I love, I
Right.
paid for it.
Oh,
I paid
I get
for
it.
it.
I have psoriasis. It's the same
Oh,
thing,
yes.
and as I'm now in my cause to in my mission to release weight again, it's also inflamed because of the change, right? Because of
Right,
the toxins that are coming out and creating more of
right.
that inflammation. But I can already, I mean, so I have, since starting, I've released, I think, 11 pounds, and already I can, a few weeks ago, it was hard to put my rings on and off because of, not
Mm,
because of the weight, but because of the inflammation, because of the
yes.
puffiness, because of all of those things. So, those are signs. The pain waking up in the morning, the shoulders, the hips, all of that, that okay, something, your body needs something different. I love that you brought up the naturopaths and I think that that's really the crux of the issue is we rely so heavily here in the United States on um quick fixes, the
Right.
pills,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yes.
and our bodies are meant to be fueled by natural foods,
Yes. And
right?
natural remedies, like my friends an herbalist, wonderful,
Right.
right? And like again, I hope nobody misunderstands. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just listen to everything your doctor says. No, 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 challenge too, like don't mask, heal,
Right.
you know?
And what goes into our foods, right? In
Right.
this and the amount of waste, right? At the end of the day, if we weren't eating 12, big huge meals of 12 of 1200 2000 calorie meals, would we need to produce as much
Right.
of the different products? I mean, how much
Right.
do we throw away? How much waste is there? Would we even need to produce as much as we produce,
Right.
thus creating all of the different herbicides, all of the different things to make that happen, the bad fertilizers? I mean, that could be a whole another topic for us.
Yes.
But
And I'll
ultimately, well,
definitely be back.
yeah, I appreciate you bringing up the whole, it's a lot to think about. And at the end of the day, we, whatever size we are right here right now, I would agree with their movement in the sense that, okay, we get to accept where we are, but
Yes.
it doesn't mean we need to accept that we have to stay there, right?
Exactly.
When I say,
Right.
all right, I accept where I am, it was my choices, my decisions, um everything that I did up to this point got me to where I am here and now today. Is
Right.
this where I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And if it is
Right.
not, then I get to make different choices to change that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it is where I want to be, so let's just say your friend says, yep, I'm perfectly happy this way. Then, if that's the case, then I get to accept the
Yes.
consequences that come with that choice. So
Yes.
that means
Right.
if I'm being shamed by others, that's a consequence of choosing that choice. That means if I don't get out and go walk down the street for a rally, I've accepted that consequence for this. If I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a love life, I've accepted that consequence. I don't get to change the way others perceive health
Right. Mm-hmm.
because I'm not willing to change my circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
And you're not stating that it's right. We're not stating that we're happy that you don't have a love life, or we're happy you can't go to the
right?
rally. No, 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 no. But like for every, what is it? For every action, there's a reaction
Right.
for every, and again,
Every choice, there's
I won't
crisis
speak
and
for you, Brenda,
benefits.
but I will. We're not talking about shaming. We're not talking
No.
about being hateful to other people.
Mm-mm.
However, people do have opinions, and sometimes they do hurt. And we have opinions of ourselves. Let's be real about it, right? Like, I'm sorry. Like, there's a reason why I think people say, you know what, screw it. I've gotten this. So I can't. I'm stuck. Like the same friend will say, I'm stuck, so I'm not
Yeah.
gonna even try. Like I'm stuck. It's gonna take a lot. It's like debt. Like
Right.
you talk about all that all the time. Like
Right.
financial freedom, financial literacy. It's like if you're in a ditch, stop digging.
Yep. Yeah. Except, there comes a time where you have to take a real good hard look at where you're at and
Yeah.
decide, is that where you want to be?
Yeah.
Is that what makes you, is that where you want to be? And again, we're wired to be the best version of ourselves. We're
Right.
wired to constantly be on this. So most are probably not going to be that. And, when we talk, depression, all of those other issues that come up when we accept something less than what we were created for. Our God has created us to, he doesn't put those dreams in our hearts and in our
Yes.
minds for
Right.
us to give up and accept where we're at. Whether it's
Exactly.
our health or whether it's, and we need a healthy body to get to those dreams and goals, period. A
Right.
healthy, sharp mind and body. Well, Brie, I know we are coming up to the end of the hour. We could go on and on this topic and others, and I definitely hope you will come back again. Please tell our audience how to reach you.
Yes. So you can follow me on Instagram at Brie Falough. That's BrieFalouGh. That's where I am majority of the time, where you'll hear my thoughts and learn about my program. Can I say one more thing,
Yes.
Brenda, really quickly? One of my girlfriends who is Native American, Finnish and Indian, right? Very spiritual woman. She said something to me a couple weeks ago that kind of shocked me a little bit, and it made me think. And she said, in my culture, in my belief system, we don't think of hell as a physical place. And I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. And she's like, we think of hell as when you pass, right? You meet the potential you that you could have been, as a reminder of, I was like, almost like, oh no. She's like, yeah, you're going to look yourself in the face. You're going to see the body. You're going to see the accolades, the achievement that you could have had if you would have strived a little bit more. So ask yourself today, are you doing the best that you can be? And in the afterlife, again, we have different, obviously, opinions about this, but in the afterlife, are you going to stand next to the person that looks exactly are you going to stand next to the person or across from the person that you were called to be, or are you going to fall short?
Wow.
It was pretty profound, and it kind of left me like, oh wow, I don't want, that was my belief system. I would not, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I could have did this and that, but I didn't have the discipline, or I didn't have the structure.
Well, exactly. Imagine, I mean, and how hard, even if it's not hell, but imagine going to meet Christ and Christ saying, this is what I dreamt for you, and you were capable of it.
My gosh.
This is what I had dreamt for you. All of those seeds I planted as goals and dreams, you could have achieved.
Yeah.
Wow. Just anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. For those of you that would like to submit questions, we would love to talk about, or have topics or, thoughts on what we talked about today. Would like to submit questions for the next time Brie and I are together, or a future show. Please email me at brenda@cheapmamalife.com. And join us next time. We're now on 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is super exciting. So thank you for listening, and share, download, and help us grow this movement of strong, amazing women who are who can have great lives in the home and great lives out in the workspace, entrepreneurship, all of those things. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
hope you enjoyed that episode of the Cheap Mama Life podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review right now if you haven't already, and hit that share button. Until next time.